Amara Washington never thought her scholarship to Seoul National University would change her entire life. The 22-year-old girl from Detroit had worked 3 jobs just to save money for her plane ticket to South Korea. Her dream was simple: study international business and maybe open her own company someday. But life had different plans for her. The first day of classes felt like stepping into another world. Everything was so different from her small community college back home. The buildings were massive and modern, students walked around in designer clothes, and everyone seemed to know exactly where they belonged. Amara clutched her worn backpack tighter and tried to find her classroom. She was already 10 minutes late when she finally found the right building. Running up the stairs in her old sneakers, she didn't notice the wet floor sign. Her feet slipped, and she went tumbling down, books flying everywhere. Students stopped and stared. Some even took out their phones to record. Amara felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment as she tried to gather her scattered papers. "Are you hurt?" a deep voice asked in perfect English. Amara looked up and found herself staring into the most beautiful dark eyes she had ever seen. A young man in an expensive black coat was kneeling beside her, helping collect her books. His face was so handsome it looked like it belonged in a magazine. Several girls nearby were whispering and pointing at him with excited faces. "I'm fine, thank you," Amara mumbled, trying to stand up. Her ankle hurt, but she didn't want to seem weak in front of this stranger who was being so kind. "You're bleeding," he said, pointing to a small cut on her knee. Without asking, he pulled out a clean handkerchief from his pocket and gently pressed it against the wound. "We should get this cleaned up." Amara was about to protest when a group of well-dressed students approached them. Their faces looked angry and disgusted. "Minjun, what are you doing?" a pretty girl with long, straight hair asked in Korean. Amara didn't understand the words, but the tone was clear. This girl was not happy. The young man, Minjun, stood up slowly. His whole body language changed. The warmth in his eyes disappeared, replaced by something cold and distant. He looked at Amara for a moment, then back at his friends. "Nothing important," he said in Korean, though Amara caught the word important in English. "Let's go." As the group walked away, Amara heard them laughing and making comments in Korean. She didn't need to understand the language to know they were talking about her. One of the girls looked back at her with a mean smile and said something that made the others laugh even louder. Minjun didn't look back once. Amara limped to her first class, feeling smaller than ever. The professor, Dr. Kim, was a strict-looking woman in her 50s who clearly didn't appreciate late students. When Amara tried to explain what happened, Dr. Kim just pointed to an empty seat in the back corner. "Next time, leave earlier," she said coldly. The rest of the day didn't get better. At lunch, Amara sat alone in the cafeteria, while groups of Korean students chatted and laughed at tables around her. She tried to order food, but the cafeteria worker seemed annoyed by her poor Korean and slow hand gestures. Finally, she just pointed at whatever looked safe and took her tray to the corner table. That's when she overheard 2 girls at the next table talking in English. "Did you see what happened this morning? Lee Min-jun actually touched that foreign girl," one said with a disgusted voice. "So gross. I heard she's here on some charity scholarship. Why do they even let people like her into our university?" the other replied. "My father knows Min-jun's family. They would die if they knew he was talking to someone like that. Good thing he came to his senses and walked away." Amara's appetite disappeared completely. She pushed her food around the plate, trying to process what she had just heard. So the kind stranger had a name, Lee Min-jun, and apparently, helping her had been some kind of social mistake on his part. After lunch, she had economics class. Professor Park was explaining international trade theories when the classroom door opened. Lee Min-jun walked in, apologizing quietly to the teacher for being late. He was even more handsome in the afternoon light streaming through the windows. Several girls in the class sat up straighter and fixed their hair. Minjun's eyes scanned the room for an empty seat. When his gaze met Amara's, she saw something flicker across his face. Recognition, maybe even concern. But then his expression went blank again, and he chose a seat on the opposite side of the room. Throughout the entire class, Amara could feel people looking between her and Minjun. Whispers started spreading from desk to desk. She tried to focus on the lecture, but her hands were shaking as she took notes. When class ended, Minjun left quickly without looking in her direction. But as Amara packed her books, she found a small piece of paper tucked under her notebook. Written in neat handwriting were the words, "Are you okay? MJ." Her heart skipped a beat. He had been thinking about her injury from the morning. The next few days followed the same pattern. Minjun would nod politely if they passed in the hallway, but he never spoke to her when other people were around. However, small notes kept appearing in her books and folders. "The library on the third floor is quieter for studying. Try the kimchi jjigae in the cafeteria. It's actually good. Don't let them see you cry." That last note appeared after a particularly bad day when some girls had accidentally knocked her books out of her hands and laughed when she bent down to pick them up. Amara had run to the bathroom and cried for 10 minutes before pulling herself together. Somehow, Minjun had known. One evening, Amara was studying late in the library when someone sat down across from her. She looked up to find Minjun there, but he looked different, tired, worried. "We need to talk," he said quietly. Amara glanced around. The library was nearly empty, just a few students scattered at distant tables. "About what?" she asked, though her heart was already racing. "About why I've been acting like we don't know each other," Minjun said. "It's not because I want to, it's because I have to." "I don't understand." Minjun ran his hand through his hair and sighed. "My family, they're very traditional, very powerful. My father owns half the companies in Seoul, and my mother comes from old Korean nobility. They have very specific ideas about who I should associate with. And I don't fit those ideas," Amara said. It wasn't a question. "It's not about you personally. You seem like an amazing person. It's about—" He struggled to find the right words. "They believe in keeping traditions pure. Korean traditions, Korean bloodlines, Korean everything." Amara felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. "So you're saying your family is racist?" Minjun winced. "I'm saying they're old-fashioned and set in their ways, and I'm their only son. Everything I do reflects on our family name." "And talking to me would damage that name?" "Yes," he said simply, and Amara appreciated his honesty even though it hurt. They sat in silence for a few moments. Finally, Amara closed her textbook. "Then we shouldn't be talking now," she said, starting to gather her things. "Wait." Minjun reached across the table and touched her hand. The contact sent electricity through her entire body. "I didn't say I agreed with them." Amara looked into his eyes and saw something there that made her breath catch. Longing, sadness, and something else that looked almost like affection. "What are you saying?" she whispered. "I'm saying that for the first time in my life, I met someone who made me question everything I was taught to believe," Minjun said. "When I saw you fall down those stairs, my first instinct was to help. Not because you were Korean or foreign or rich or poor, just because you needed help and I wanted to give it." "That's called being a decent human being," Amara said. "In my world, it's called being dangerous," Minjun replied. "My friends have been asking questions. My parents have heard rumors. If they find out I've been leaving you notes talking to you, what would happen?" Minjun's face darkened. "They would make sure you disappeared from this university. Scholarship revoked, visa canceled. You'd be on a plane back to America before you could pack your bags." Amara felt cold all over. "They can do that?" "My father donated the money for this entire building we're sitting in," Minjun said. "Yes, they can do that. The weight of his words settled between them. Amara understood now why he had been so distant in public. He wasn't just protecting his own reputation. He was protecting her entire future. "So, what do we do?" she asked. Min-jun looked at her for a long moment. "We stay away from each other. We pretend this conversation never happened. You finish your degree and go back to America, and I marry whoever my parents choose and take over the family business. Is that what you want?" "What I want doesn't matter," Min-jun said, but his voice cracked slightly. "What I want has never mattered." Amara studied his face in the dim library lighting. This beautiful, kind man who had been born into enormous privilege was also trapped by it. He was as much a prisoner of his circumstances as she was of hers. "I should go," she said finally, standing up. Min-jun nodded but didn't move to leave. "Amara?" She turned back, surprised to hear him say her name. She had never told him what it was. "Be careful. My friends aren't just being mean for fun. Some of them see you as a real threat to the way things are supposed to work. Promise me you'll be careful." "I promise," she said. As she walked away, Amara didn't see Min-jun watching her until she disappeared around the corner. She didn't see him pull out his phone and stare at a text message from his father. "Son, we need to talk about your recent behavior. Come home this weekend." And she definitely didn't see him delete the message without responding, his jaw set with determination. Outside the library, Amara walked slowly back to her tiny dormitory room. The campus looked beautiful at night, with lights reflecting off the modern buildings and carefully maintained gardens. It was everything she had dreamed of when she applied for the scholarship. But now she understood that dreams and reality were two very different things. Her roommate, a quiet Korean girl named Soo-jin, was already asleep when she got back. Amara got ready for bed quietly, but sleep wouldn't come. She kept thinking about Min-jun's words, the sadness in his eyes, and the impossible situation they both found themselves in. She also thought about the warning he had given her. Were his friends really dangerous? Or was he just being overprotective? She would find out sooner than she expected. The next morning, Amara woke up to find her laptop missing from her desk. Her textbooks were scattered across the floor, and her clothes had been pulled out of her drawers. Soo-jin was gone, and there was no note explaining what had happened. On her pillow was a single piece of paper with a message written in English. "Go home, black girl. You don't belong here." Amara's hands shook as she held the paper. Someone had been in her room while she slept. Someone had gone through her personal belongings. Someone wanted her to feel unsafe. It was working. She spent the morning cleaning up the mess and trying to figure out what to do. Should she report this to campus security? To the police? She didn't even know if the local authorities would take her seriously. When she got to her first class, students were looking at her strangely, more than usual. Some were whispering and pointing at their phones. Amara's stomach dropped. Something had happened. Something bad. During lunch break, a girl she had never spoken to before approached her table. "You should see this," the girl said, holding out her phone. On the screen was a picture of Amara and Min-jun in the library the night before. Someone had taken the photo from a distance, but you could clearly see them sitting close together, his hand touching hers. The caption read, "Korean prince, slumming with foreign charity case. How desperate can you get?" The post had hundreds of comments, and most of them were cruel. Amara felt sick reading them. People called her ugly names, said she was using Min-jun for money and status, and suggested much worse things about her motives for being in Korea. "Who posted this?" Amara asked. "Someone with a private account," the girl said, "but everyone's sharing it. It's all over campus." Amara handed back the phone and tried to finish her lunch, but her appetite was completely gone. She could feel hundreds of eyes on her, judging her, hating her for something she hadn't even done wrong. When she got to economics class that afternoon, Min-jun was already there. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept at all. When she walked in, every head in the room turned to watch her find her seat. Professor Park tried to conduct the lesson normally, but the tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Students kept looking between Amara and Min-jun, waiting for something to happen. Nothing did. They both stared straight ahead and took notes like always. But when class ended and students started filing out, Min-jun walked over to her desk. The room went completely silent. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is my fault." "It's not," Amara replied, packing her books quickly. "Yes, it is. I should have stayed away like I planned." Min-jun's voice was filled with regret and something else, anger. "They want me to choose between my family's approval and my own conscience. I thought I could have both. But I was wrong." Amara looked up at him. "So what's your choice?" Min-jun glanced around the room at all the students watching them. His friends from that first day were standing near the door, their faces cold and disapproving. In the hallway, she could see more people gathering, phones ready to capture whatever happened next. "I don't know yet," he said honestly, "but I know that you don't deserve any of this. You came here to study and build a better life for yourself. You shouldn't have to deal with our problems." "Our problems?" Amara asked. "Korea's problems. My family's problems. The problems of people who think the color of someone's skin or the country they come from determines their worth as a human being." A few students gasped. In Korean society, publicly criticizing traditional values was almost unheard of, especially for someone from Min-jun's background. "Min-jun!" one of his friends called from the doorway. "We need to go, now!" Min-jun ignored them. "Amara, I want you to know that meeting you has been the best thing that's happened to me in years. You're brave and smart and kind, and anyone who can't see that is blind." "Don't do this here," Amara whispered urgently. "You'll make everything worse for both of us." "Maybe some things need to get worse before they get better," Min-jun said. He turned to face the room full of students. "If anyone has a problem with me talking to Amara, they can take it up with me directly. Stop hiding behind anonymous posts and childish pranks." The room was so quiet you could hear people breathing. Min-jun looked back at Amara one last time. "Be careful going back to your room tonight, and if anything else happens, call me immediately." He handed her a piece of paper with his phone number written on it. Then he walked out, leaving Amara alone with 50 pairs of staring eyes. The rest of the day passed in a blur of whispers, stares, and pointed comments. By evening, Amara was emotionally exhausted. She just wanted to go back to her room, call her mom in Detroit, and maybe cry for a while. But when she got to her dormitory building, there was a crowd gathered outside. Campus security officers were standing around looking official, and she could see flashing lights from emergency vehicles. "What happened?" she asked another student. "Someone broke into one of the rooms on the 3rd floor, the girl replied. "Completely trashed it, wrote horrible things on the walls." Amara's blood went cold. The 3rd floor was where she lived. She pushed through the crowd and ran up the stairs, her heart pounding. Sure enough, the door to her room was standing open, surrounded by yellow tape. Security guards were taking photos of the damage inside. Through the doorway, she could see her belongings destroyed. Her clothes were shredded, her books were torn apart, and spray-painted across the wall in red letters was a message that made her stomach turn. Death to race traitors and the foreigners who seduce them. "Miss Washington?" One of the security officers approached her. "I'm Officer Shin. This is your room, correct?" Amara nodded, unable to speak. "We'll need you to come with us to file a report. And I'm afraid you can't stay here tonight. The room isn't safe, and frankly, the entire building might not be safe for you right now." "Where am I supposed to go?" Amara asked, finally finding her voice. "We're working on that," Officer Shin said. "In the meantime, do you have anyone you can call? Family? Friends?" Amara thought about her options. Her parents back in Detroit couldn't help from thousands of miles away. She didn't really have any close friends at the university yet. The only person who had shown her real kindness was... She pulled out the piece of paper Min-jun had given her earlier. "I might have someone," she said. Amara's hands trembled as she dialed Min-jun's number. The phone rang twice before his familiar voice answered. "Hello?" "Min-jun, it's Amara. I need help." Her voice cracked as she spoke. "What happened? Where are you?" "Someone destroyed my room. Everything is ruined. The security guards say I can't stay in the dormitory tonight because it's not safe." There was silence for a moment. Then Min-jun's voice came back, firm and determined. "Stay right where you are. Don't move. Don't talk to anyone else. I'm coming to get you." "Min-jun, if people see you picking me up from the scene of this mess, it will make everything worse. Your parents will find out. Your friends will be furious." "I don't care anymore," Min-jun said. 20 minutes. Don't move." The line went dead. Officer Shin finished taking photos and asked Amara to identify what was missing or destroyed. The list was heartbreaking. Her laptop, her grandmother's necklace that she wore for good luck, her favorite books, even the small plant she had bought to make the room feel more like home. Everything that made the space hers had been systematically destroyed. "Do you have any idea who might have done this?" Officer Shin asked. Amara thought about the photo circulating around campus, the cruel comments, the way some students had been looking at her, but she couldn't prove who was responsible. "No," she said quietly. "We'll review the security cameras, but honestly, Miss Washington, I think you should consider whether staying at this university is the right choice for you. This level of harassment..." He shook his head. "I've never seen anything quite this bad." Before Amara could respond, she heard voices coming from the stairs. Someone was arguing loudly in Korean. The voices were getting closer. Min-jun appeared at the top of the stairs, followed by 3 of his friends from that first day. They all looked angry, but Min-jun looked furious. "Where is she?" he demanded in English, scanning the hallway until his eyes found Amara. His friends were talking rapidly in Korean, clearly trying to convince him to leave. The pretty girl with long hair that Amara remembered from the first day was pulling on Min-jun's arm, her voice high and desperate. "Min-jun, please think about what you're doing," she said in English, obviously wanting Amara to understand. "Your parents will disown you. Your whole future will be ruined. And for what? For someone who will be gone in a year anyway?" Min-jun pulled his arm free and walked straight to Amara. His friends followed, still protesting. "Are you hurt?" he asked, looking her up and down with concern. "I'm fine, just shaken up," Amara replied. Officer Shin stepped forward. "And you are?" "Lee Min-jun. I'm here to take Miss Washington somewhere safe for the night." "I see. And what's your relationship to Miss Washington?" Min-jun hesitated for just a moment. His friends were staring at him, waiting to see what he would say. Students had started gathering in the hallway, drawn by the commotion. Everyone was listening. "She's my friend," Min-jun said clearly, "and someone I care about very much." The gasps from his friends were audible. The girl with long hair looked like she might faint. "Min-jun, no," she whispered. "You can't say things like that. Not here, not in front of all these people." "Why not, Hye-jin?" Min-jun turned to face her. "Because it's true? Because I'm supposed to pretend I don't care when someone I care about is being terrorized?" "Because your father will destroy both of you if he finds out," Hye-jin shot back. "He's already suspicious about the photo from yesterday. If he hears that you publicly claimed this girl as someone important to you, then he'll hear it," Min-jun said. "I'm tired of living my life based on what my father might think or do." Officer Shin looked uncomfortable with the family drama playing out in front of him. "Mr. Lee, if you're taking Miss Washington somewhere for the night, I need an address and contact information for our records." Min Jun gave him the address of what Amara assumed was his apartment. His friends looked horrified. "You're taking her to your place?" one of them asked in English. "Do you realize what people will say? What they'll think?" "I'm taking her somewhere safe," Min Jun replied. "If you have a problem with that, you're welcome to leave." Hye Jin stepped closer to him. "Min Jun, I've known you since we were children. We've been engaged since we were 18. Please don't throw away our future for someone you met 2 weeks ago." Amara felt like someone had slapped her. Engaged? Min Jun was engaged to this beautiful, perfect Korean girl and he had never mentioned it? "We were never engaged, Hye Jin," Min Jun said tiredly. "Our parents made an agreement when we were kids. We never agreed to anything." "The same parents who will cut off your inheritance and kick you out of the family if you keep this up," Hye Jin said desperately. "Is she really worth losing everything for?" Min Jun looked at Amara. She could see him weighing his answer, understanding that what he said next would change everything for both of them. "Yes," he said simply. "She is." The hallway erupted in whispers and shocked conversations. Several students immediately pulled out their phones to share this new development. By morning, everyone on campus would know that Lee Min-jun had chosen a foreign girl over his family's expectations. Min-jun picked up Amara's small bag of salvaged belongings and took her hand. "Come on, let's get out of here." As they walked down the stairs together, Amara could hear Hye Jin crying behind them. She felt terrible for the girl, even though she didn't really know her. Hye Jin had probably grown up expecting to marry Min-jun, and now her whole future had just been turned upside down. "Min-jun, wait," Amara said as they reached the ground floor. "Are you sure about this? That girl upstairs, your parents, your whole life? You're giving up everything for someone you barely know." Min-jun stopped walking and turned to face her. "Amara, do you want to know why I really helped you that first day when you fell down the stairs? Because you're a good person? Because when I looked at you, I saw someone who was brave enough to come halfway around the world to chase a dream, even though you knew it would be difficult. I saw someone who got knocked down and immediately started trying to get back up. I saw someone who was beautiful and kind and real in a way that no one in my world has ever been real." He took both of her hands in his. "I've spent my entire life doing what other people expected me to do. Going to the right schools, dating the right people, saying the right things. I was dying inside, and I didn't even realize it until I met you. But your family, your future, my family wants me to be a puppet. My future was planned out for me before I was born. Marry Hye Jin, take over the company, have Korean sons to carry on the family name, never question anything or think for myself." Min-jun's eyes were intense as he looked at her. "You want to know what I really want? I want to wake up every morning excited about the day ahead. I want to have conversations that matter with someone who challenges me to be better. I want to feel like my life belongs to me, not to a bunch of traditions that were old when my grandfather was young." "And you think I can give you those things?" Amara asked quietly. "I think you already have," Min-jun said. "The question is whether you want to try building something together, knowing how difficult it's going to be." Amara looked around the campus that had seemed so welcoming just 2 weeks ago. Now it felt hostile and dangerous, but when she looked at Min-jun, she saw possibility. "Okay," she said, "let's try." Min-jun's apartment was nothing like what Amara had expected. She had imagined something flashy and expensive, but instead it was warm and comfortable. The furniture was simple but high quality, and the walls were covered with books and photographs from his travels around the world. "I live here instead of the family estate because I wanted some independence," Min-jun explained as he showed her around. "My parents hate it, but they agreed to let me have my own place as long as I keep up my grades and don't embarrass the family. Well, I think we can check that second requirement off the list, Amara said, making him laugh despite everything that had happened. Are you hungry? He asked. I can cook something, or we can order delivery. You cook? My grandmother taught me when I was little. She said no one should be helpless in the kitchen, even rich boys. Minjun made them a simple but delicious meal of rice, vegetables, and grilled meat. As they ate, they talked about their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. Amara told him about growing up in Detroit with parents who worked multiple jobs to make ends meet, about being the first person in her family to go to college, about her dream of starting a business that would help other young people find opportunities. Minjun told her about the pressure of being an only son in a traditional family, about feeling like he was suffocating under everyone's expectations, about his secret love of poetry and art that his parents considered worthless hobbies. Can I ask you something? Amara said as they finished eating. When did you know you were willing to risk everything for this? For us? Minjun was quiet for a moment. Do you remember that note I left you after the day some girls knocked your books down? The one that said, "Don't let them see you cry"? Yes. I was in the library that day, studying on the floor above where you were sitting. I saw those girls come over to your table. I saw them accidentally. Knock everything over and laugh about it. And then I watched you sit there for 5 minutes trying not to cry, picking up your books one by one. He reached across the table and took her hand. Any normal person would have been angry. They would have confronted those girls or reported them or at least complained to someone. But you just took it. You cleaned up the mess they made and kept going. That's when I realized you were the strongest person I'd ever met. I didn't feel strong. I felt humiliated. You didn't give them the satisfaction of breaking down in public. You didn't let them win. That takes incredible strength. Amara felt tears forming in her eyes. I was so lonely, Minjun. I almost quit school that day and went home to Detroit. What stopped you? Your note, she said simply. Someone had noticed. Someone cared. It was enough to keep me going. They talked until almost midnight before Minjun showed her to the guest bedroom. You'll be safe here tonight, he said. Tomorrow we'll figure out what to do next. What do you mean? I mean, tonight changes everything. By morning, everyone will know that I brought you home with me. My parents will probably cut off my access to family money. The university administration might get involved. Your scholarship could be threatened. Amara felt a wave of panic. Maybe I should go to a hotel instead. If people don't see me here in the morning. It's too late for that, Minjun said gently. Half the campus saw us leave together. The other half will know by morning. Besides, I don't want to hide anymore. But what if we lose everything? Then we'll build something new, Minjun said, with more confidence than he felt. Together. That night, Amara lay awake in the guest bed, staring at the ceiling. Through the thin walls, she could hear Minjun moving around in his room, probably unable to sleep as well. Every few minutes, his phone would buzz with text messages that he didn't answer. Around 2 in the morning, there was a loud knock at the front door. Then another. Then someone started ringing the doorbell repeatedly. Amara heard Minjun get up and walk to the door. She could hear voices speaking rapidly in Korean, angry, demanding voices. One of them was definitely female. After a few minutes, the voices moved inside the apartment. Amara could hear what sounded like an argument happening in the living room. The female voice was crying and pleading. Minjun's voice was firm but patient. The conversation went on for almost an hour before Amara heard the front door close again. Minjun's footsteps came back down the hallway, and she heard his bedroom door close. In the morning, Amara found Minjun in the kitchen making coffee. He looked exhausted. Ye-jin? She asked. Ye-jin and her parents? Minjun confirmed. They wanted me to know that my parents have called an emergency family meeting for this afternoon. Apparently someone sent them the photos from last night. What will happen at the meeting? They'll give me an ultimatum. Stop seeing you and marry Hyejin as planned, or be cut off from the family permanently. Amara sat down at the kitchen table. Minjun, maybe you should take their offer. Your family is your family. I'm just someone you met a few weeks ago. You're not just someone, Minjun said. You're the first person who ever made me want to be myself instead of who everyone else wanted me to be. But if you lose your family... If I lose my family over this, then they were never really my family to begin with, Minjun said. Real families love you for who you are, not for how well you follow their plans. He sat down next to her and took her hands. Amara, I need you to know something. Whatever happens at that meeting today, whatever my parents say or do, I don't regret last night. I don't regret choosing you. Even if it costs you everything. Especially if it costs me everything, Minjun said, because everything I had before wasn't really mine anyway. It was just a life someone else designed for me. They spent the morning walking around Seoul, away from the university where people would recognize them. Minjun showed her parts of the city she had never seen. Quiet neighborhoods with traditional houses, markets where vendors sold fresh food and handmade crafts, parks where old men played board games and children chased pigeons. For a few hours, they could almost pretend they were just a normal couple on a normal date, exploring the city together. But as the afternoon approached, the weight of what was coming settled back over them. I should go to that family meeting, Minjun said as they sat by a fountain in a small park. Do you want me to come with you? Minjun laughed, but there was no humor in it. That would probably give my father a heart attack. No, this is something I need to handle alone. What will you tell them? The truth. That I'm 22 years old and old enough to make my own decisions about my life. That I refuse to marry someone I don't love just to preserve some family business arrangement. And that if they can't accept that, then we don't really have much to talk about. Amara admired his courage, but she was terrified for him. What if they really do cut you off? How will you finish school? How will you live? I'll figure it out, Minjun said. People manage to survive without family money all the time. You're doing it right now. That's different. I never had family money to lose. Maybe that makes you stronger than me, Minjun said. Maybe I need to learn how to be strong the way you are. He checked his phone. It was time to go. Meet me back here in 3 hours, Minjun said, standing up. No matter what happens at that meeting, I want to see you afterward. Promise? I promise. Minjun kissed her forehead gently, and then he was gone, walking toward a future that neither of them could predict. Amara spent the next 3 hours wandering around Seoul alone, trying not to think about what might be happening at the Lee family meeting. She bought coffee from street vendors and sat in different parks, watching ordinary people live their ordinary lives. Everyone looked so carefree. Nobody else seemed to be agonizing over impossible choices between love and family, tradition and independence, safety and authenticity. When 3 hours had passed, she made her way back to the fountain where they had agreed to meet. Minjun was already there, sitting on a bench with his head in his hands. Amara's heart sank. His body language told her everything she needed to know before she even saw his face. How bad was it? She asked, sitting down beside him. Minjun looked up. His eyes were red, and he looked like he had aged 10 years in the past 3 hours. It was worse than I expected, he said quietly. My father didn't just threaten to cut me off financially. He said he would make sure I never worked for any major company in Korea. He would blacklist me from the business community completely. And your mother? My mother cried and begged me to come to my senses. She said I was throwing away not just my future, but the future of our entire family line, that I was being selfish and irresponsible and breaking her heart. Amara felt tears start to form in her own eyes. "I'm so sorry." "That's not the worst part," Min-jun said. "The worst part is what they said about you." "What did they say?" Min-jun was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was filled with rage. "They said you were obviously using me to get permanent residency in Korea, that you had probably planned this whole thing from the beginning, that foreign women often target wealthy Korean men as a way to improve their social status." "Min-jun?" "They said that once you got what you wanted from me, you would leave and find someone even richer, that I was being naive and foolish, and that you were laughing at me behind my back." Amara felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. "You don't believe that, do you?" "Of course not," Min-jun said immediately. "But hearing my own parents say those things about someone I care about, it was horrible." They sat in silence for a while, watching the sun set over the city. "So what happens now?" Amara asked finally. "Now I have a choice to make," Min-jun said. "Go back to my parents, apologize, agree to marry Hae-jin, and pretend none of this ever happened. Or, or start building a life that actually belongs to me." Min-jun turned to look at her. "Amara, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Okay. Are you willing to try making a real relationship work with me, knowing that it means we'll both be fighting an uphill battle against everyone and everything around us? Knowing that I'll be poor and probably struggling to find work? Knowing that people will say cruel things about both of us for as long as we're together?" Amara thought about everything that had led to this moment. The fall down the stairs, the anonymous threats, the destroyed dormitory room, the hostile stares and whispered comments. It would probably get worse before it got better. But she also thought about the gentle way Min-jun had helped her collect her books that first day. The thoughtful notes he had left her when he couldn't speak to her publicly. The way he had risked everything to come to her rescue when she needed help. "Yes," she said. "I'm willing to try." Min-jun smiled for the first time that day. "Then let's go home and figure out how to build a life together." As they walked back toward his apartment, Amara felt scared but also hopeful. They had no idea what challenges were coming next, but they would face them together. Behind them, neither of them noticed the photographer with the long-distance lens, who had been documenting their entire conversation by the fountain. By morning, photos of their intimate conversation would be on the front page of Seoul's biggest gossip blog, along with a headline that would change everything again. "Disgraced heir and foreign mistress plan life together. Exclusive photos inside." The real test was just beginning. The photos hit the internet at 6 in the morning. By 7, Min-jun's phone was buzzing every few seconds with calls, texts, and social media notifications. By 8, there were reporters outside his apartment building. Amara woke up to the sound of shouting voices coming from the street below. She looked out the window and saw a crowd of people with cameras and microphones gathered outside the building entrance. "Min-jun!" she called, running to the living room where he was pacing back and forth with his phone pressed to his ear. "I don't care what the shareholders think," he was saying to whoever was on the other end. "I'm not making any public statements today. No, I'm not available for interviews. Because I said so." He hung up, and immediately the phone started ringing again. "Don't answer," Amara said. "It's been like this for an hour," Min-jun said, looking frustrated and exhausted. "First it was gossip blogs, then news websites. Now even some international media outlets are picking up the story." "What are they saying?" Min-jun showed her his laptop screen. The headline read, "Korean chaebol heir abandons billions for African-American woman inside the scandal-rocking Seoul's elite." Amara felt sick reading the article. It was full of speculation about their relationship, details about Min-jun's family background, and photos from their conversation at the fountain the day before. Someone had been watching them from a distance, documenting their most private moments. "This is my fault," she said. "If I hadn't called you when my room was vandalized, if I hadn't let you help me—" "Stop," Minjun said firmly. "This is not your fault. The only people at fault are the ones who think our personal lives are their entertainment." His phone rang again. This time, when he looked at the screen, his face went pale. "It's my mother," he said. "Answer it," Amara said. "Maybe she's calling to apologize or to work things out." Minjun answered the call and immediately held the phone away from his ear. Even from across the room, Amara could hear his mother shouting in Korean. The conversation lasted less than 2 minutes before the line went dead. "What did she say?" Amara asked. "She said the family lawyers are meeting this morning to discuss officially cutting me off from the inheritance. She said I have until noon today to come home, publicly apologize, and announce my engagement to Hye Jin. If I don't, they'll release a statement saying I'm no longer considered part of the Lee family." Minjun sat down heavily on the couch. "She also said that immigration officials will be reviewing your student visa status and that several university board members are calling for your scholarship to be revoked." Amara felt the world spinning around her. "They can really do all that?" "My father has connections everywhere. Government officials, university administrators, business leaders. Yes, they can probably do all of that and more." They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the crowd of reporters outside getting louder and more demanding. "Maybe I should just leave," Amara said quietly. "Go back to Detroit. Finish my degree at a local university. Let you repair things with your family." "Is that what you want?" "I want you to be happy. I want to finish my education. I want to build the life I dreamed about. But I don't want any of those things if they come at the cost of destroying your future." Minjun looked at her for a long moment. "What if I told you I had an idea? Something that might let us stay together without losing everything?" "What kind of idea?" "A risky one. Maybe a crazy one. But it might work." Before Minjun could explain further, there was a knock at the door. Not the aggressive pounding of reporters, but a gentle, polite knock. "Are you expecting someone?" Amara asked. "No." Minjun looked through the peephole and his expression changed to surprise. "It's my grandmother." He opened the door to reveal a tiny, elegant woman in her 70s. She was impeccably dressed and carried herself with the kind of dignity that spoke of old money and older traditions. Behind her stood a man in a black suit, who was obviously her driver. "Grandmother, what are you doing here?" Minjun asked in English, glancing nervously at Amara. "I came to meet the young woman who has turned our family upside down," the elderly woman replied in perfect English, with a slight British accent. She stepped into the apartment and looked around approvingly. "I always liked this place better than that ridiculous mansion your parents live in. Too much gold and marble. Not enough books." Her eyes settled on Amara. "You must be Miss Washington." "Yes, ma'am," Amara said, standing up and bowing slightly. She wasn't sure what the proper etiquette was for meeting a Korean grandmother, but respect seemed like a good starting point. "Please sit down," Minjun's grandmother said, settling herself gracefully on the couch. "We have much to discuss." Minjun looked confused. "Grandmother, I thought you would be angry about all this. Mother said the whole family was furious." "Your mother and father are furious," the old woman corrected. "I am curious. There's a difference." She turned to Amara. "Miss Washington, may I ask why you chose to come to Korea for your education?" "I wanted to study international business. And Seoul National University has one of the best programs in Asia," Amara answered honestly. "I also wanted to challenge myself by living in a completely different culture." "And has it been challenging?" Amara thought about the past few weeks, the loneliness, the harassment, the destroyed dormitory room, the constant stares and whispers. "Yes, ma'am. More than I expected." "Good," the grandmother said. "Worthwhile things are usually challenging. Min-jun, bring us some tea. As Min-jun busied himself in the kitchen, his grandmother continued talking to Amara. I have been married to a Lee for 52 years, she said. I have watched this family build wealth and influence across 3 generations. Do you know what I have learned in all that time? No, ma'am. Money and power are tools, nothing more. They can be used to build beautiful things or to destroy them. They can bring families together or tear them apart. The question is not whether you have them, but what you choose to do with them. Min-jun returned with tea and sat down next to Amara. Grandmother, are you here to convince Amara to leave Korea? He asked bluntly. Quite the opposite, the old woman said, surprising them both. I'm here to offer her a job. A job? Amara asked. I run a foundation that provides educational scholarships to young women from around the world. We help them study in Korea, and we help them navigate the cultural challenges that come with that. I think you would be an excellent addition to our team. Amara was stunned. I don't understand. Your family wants me to disappear. Why would you want to hire me? Min-jun's grandmother smiled. Because, my dear, I have been watching my grandson for the past 5 years turn into a hollow, unhappy young man who was slowly dying under the weight of other people's expectations. In the past month, since he met you, I have seen him come alive again. She set down her teacup and looked directly at Amara. Also, because I have done my research on you. Your grades at your previous university were excellent. Your professors wrote glowing recommendation letters. You work 3 jobs to support yourself and still find time to volunteer at a literacy program for underprivileged children. You are clearly intelligent, hardworking, and compassionate. But I'm not Korean, Amara said. No, you're not. And that's exactly why our foundation needs you. We help foreign students, but our entire staff is Korean. We need someone who actually understands what it feels like to be an outsider trying to succeed in Korean society. Min-jun looked hopeful for the first time in days. Grandmother, does this mean... It means that if Miss Washington accepts the position, she would have legal work authorization that has nothing to do with her student status. It means she would have a steady income and health insurance. It means she would have the protection and support of one of the most respected charitable organizations in Korea. The old woman paused. And it means that anyone who wants to attack her would have to go through me first. Amara felt tears forming in her eyes. Why would you do this for me? For us? Because 53 years ago I was a British woman who fell in love with a Korean man against both of our family's wishes. I know how hard this path can be, and I know how worth it can be if you have the courage to see it through. She stood up gracefully. The offer stands whether or not you and Min-jun continue your relationship. You have proven yourself to be a remarkable young woman, and remarkable young women deserve opportunities. What about your son and daughter-in-law? Min-jun asked. What about the family meeting this morning? Your father is my son, and I love him dearly, but he has forgotten some important lessons about what really matters in life. Your mother is a good woman, but she is frightened of change and difference. The grandmother picked up her purse. As for the family meeting, they can have their meeting. But they should remember that while your father controls the business, I control the family trust that owns 40% of the company. I also control several other assets that they seem to have forgotten about. She kissed Min-jun on the forehead. Follow your heart, grandson. Life is too short to live someone else's dreams. To Amara, she said, think about my offer. You can reach me through Min-jun when you've made your decision. After she left, Amara and Min-jun sat in stunned silence. Did your grandmother just solve all our problems? Amara asked finally. I think she might have, Min-jun said, laughing with relief and amazement. But what about your parents? What about the reporters outside? What about all the people who hate us being together? My grandmother is the most respected woman in Korean high society, Min-jun said. If she supports you, it sends a message to everyone else. It doesn't mean the criticism will stop completely, but it means we'll have powerful allies. Amara thought about the offer. A real job, financial security, legal protection, and the backing of an influential family matriarch. It was more than she had ever dared to hope for. "There's something else," Minjun said. "I had an idea before my grandmother arrived, and her offer makes it even better." "What kind of idea?" "What if we start our own company? Something that combines your business skills with my knowledge of Korean markets. We could focus on helping international students and workers navigate life in Korea. Cultural consulting, language services, legal assistance, job placement." Amara felt a spark of excitement. "That's actually brilliant. There's definitely a need for services like that. We could start small. Maybe work with my grandmother's foundation as one of our first clients. As we grow, we could expand to help Korean companies that want to hire international employees or Korean students who want to study abroad." "It would be our company," Amara said, liking the sound of that. "Built from scratch, belonging to us. No family money, no family control, no family expectations," Minjun agreed. "Just us and whatever we can build together." They spent the rest of the morning planning their potential business, researching the market, and talking about their vision for the future. For the first time since they had met, they felt like they were moving toward something instead of just trying to survive the chaos around them. Around noon, Minjun's phone rang with a call from his father. "I should probably answer this," he said. The conversation was brief and conducted entirely in Korean. When it ended, Minjun looked thoughtful but not upset. "What did he say?" Amara asked. "He said my grandmother visited them this morning before coming here. Apparently, she made it very clear that anyone who wants to harm you or interfere with our relationship will answer to her personally. And my father is many things, but he's not stupid. He's not going to go to war with his own mother over this, especially when she controls so much of the family assets." Minjun smiled. "He didn't exactly give us his blessing, but he agreed to call off the immigration investigation and the pressure on the university. He also said that if we can prove our business idea is viable, he might even consider investing in it." "Really?" "He's a businessman above everything else. If we can show him that helping international people succeed in Korea is profitable, he'll support it even if he's not thrilled about our personal relationship." That evening, they walked hand in hand through the same park where they had made their decision to try building a life together. The reporters had finally given up and gone away, and for the first time in days, they could move freely without being watched and photographed. "Can I ask you something?" Amara said, as they sat by the fountain where they had first committed to each other. "Anything." "That first day, when you helped me after I fell down the stairs, what were you thinking? Really thinking?" Minjun was quiet for a moment, remembering. "I was thinking that you had the most beautiful eyes I had ever seen, and that they looked so sad when people were staring at you. I wanted to make them stop looking sad. And now? Now I'm thinking that you still have the most beautiful eyes I've ever seen, but they're not sad anymore. They look determined, strong, ready for whatever comes next." "What comes next is going to be complicated," Amara said. "The best things usually are. We'll probably face more criticism, more people who think we don't belong together. Probably. Your family may never fully accept me. Some of them might, in time. The ones who don't. Well, my grandmother was right. Life is too short to live for other people's approval." Amara looked around the park, at the couples walking hand in hand, at the children playing games, at the old men reading newspapers on benches. Normal life continuing all around them. "Do you think we'll ever get to be normal?" she asked. "Just a regular couple doing regular couple things without everyone having opinions about it?" Minjun considered this. Maybe not completely normal, no. We'll probably always be a little bit of a curiosity to some people, a symbol to others, a problem to a few. That sounds exhausting. It might be. But you know what? What? I would rather be exhausted and real with you than comfortable and fake with anyone else. As the sun set over Seoul, Min-jun pulled Amara closer to him. "There's one more thing I wanted to ask you," he said nervously. "Okay." "That day in the library, when I gave you my phone number, I was terrified that you would think I was being too forward or inappropriate. I thought you were being kind, and that day when you called me after your room was destroyed, I was terrified that helping you would make everything worse for both of us." "It did make everything worse," Amara laughed. "But it also made everything better. And yesterday, when I told my parents I was choosing you over their expectations, I was terrified that I was ruining both of our lives. But you did it anyway." "But I did it anyway," Min-jun agreed. "And now I'm terrified about something else." "What?" Instead of answering, Min-jun turned to face her completely. He took both of her hands in his and looked directly into her eyes. "Amara, I know we've only known each other for a few weeks. I know we're both young and we're both figuring out our lives and we have no idea what the future holds. Min-jun, but I also know that you are the bravest, most genuine person I've ever met. I know that you make me want to be better than I thought I could be. I know that when I think about my future now, I can't imagine it without you in it." Amara's heart was racing. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I love you," Min-jun said simply. "I love your strength and your kindness and your determination and the way you laugh when something really amuses you. I love how hard you work for your dreams and how you never give up even when everything seems impossible." Tears were running down Amara's face now. "I love you too. I'm also saying that someday, when we've built our business and proven to the world that we belong together, when we've shown everyone, including ourselves, that love really can overcome anything, someday I want to marry you. Are you proposing to me?" Amara asked, laughing and crying at the same time. "Not yet," Min-jun said. I'm promising that I will never again choose other people's expectations over your happiness. I'm promising that whatever challenges we face, we'll face them together. And I'm promising that when the time is right, when we're both ready, I will ask you to be my wife in the proper way." "And what if I say yes when you ask properly?" "Then we'll have our own Korean-American wedding that combines the best traditions from both of our cultures. And we'll invite everyone who supported us along the way, including my grandmother, who I think is going to love you almost as much as I do." Amara stood on her tiptoes and kissed him softly. It was their first real kiss, and it tasted like hope and possibility, and the promise of all the beautiful, complicated, challenging days ahead of them. When they broke apart, Amara noticed that several other people in the park had stopped to watch them. But instead of the hostile stares they had grown accustomed to, these faces showed smiles and approval. An elderly Korean couple even applauded softly. "Look," she whispered to Min-jun. He looked around and saw what she was seeing. "Maybe the world is more ready for us than we thought." "Or maybe," Amara said, "love really can change people's minds one heart at a time." They walked home together through the Seoul streets, past street vendors selling traditional food and modern coffee shops full of young people, past ancient temples and gleaming skyscrapers, through a city that was learning to embrace both tradition and change. 6 months later, Amara's job with the Educational Foundation was going so well that they had doubled her responsibilities and salary. The business she and Min-jun had started was growing rapidly, with clients ranging from international students to multinational corporations. Min-jun's relationship with his parents was slowly improving. His father had invested in their company after seeing their first-year profits, and his mother had started attending family dinners that included Amara. The hostile attention from classmates and media had largely died down, replaced by curiosity and even admiration from some people who saw them as an example of modern Korea's changing attitudes. But the best part was the ordinary moments. Grocery shopping together on Sunday mornings, studying for Amara's business classes while Min-jun worked on company proposals, cooking dinner together and watching Korean dramas on the couch. They had learned that love wasn't just about grand gestures and dramatic declarations. It was about choosing each other every day, building something together one small decision at a time, and believing that two people from different worlds could create something beautiful if they were brave enough to try. On a warm spring evening, exactly 1 year after they first met, Min-jun and Amara returned to the fountain in the park where they had decided to build a life together. This time, Min-jun was carrying a small velvet box in his pocket, and Amara was wearing the traditional Korean dress his grandmother had given her for special occasions. As the sun set over Seoul, Min-jun got down on one knee and asked the question he had been practicing for weeks. Amara said yes through happy tears, and everyone in the park cheered and took pictures to share with their friends. Later, people would call it a fairy tale romance, the Korean prince who gave up his kingdom for love, the American girl who conquered Seoul with her courage and kindness. But Min-jun and Amara knew it was something even better than a fairy tale. It was real life, with all its messy complications and beautiful possibilities, lived by two people who had learned that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone worth fighting for, and then doing the fighting together. Their wedding announcement made the front page of every newspaper in Korea, but by then, nobody was surprised. The country that had once been shocked by their relationship had grown to love their story. And Amara finally got her answer to the question she had asked that night in the park. They did get to be normal eventually. Not completely normal, maybe, but normal enough to build a happy, ordinary, extraordinary life together in the city that had brought them together and taught them both what it really meant to be brave.